This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now is the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency. Hi, I'm John Seacott, Executive Editor of the Brewer Magazine. Welcome to another edition of the Brewer Magazine podcast. We are sponsored by Keg Logistics. You can go to keglogistics.com/brewermag for more details on that. And of course, we are available 24 hours a day at brewermag.com. You can check out this podcast and all the previous podcasts that you have heard right here on for Brewer Mag Podcast, both on YouTube and on Spotify. Make sure that you're liking and subscribing on those, and you can check out all the old episodes and keep up with what is going to be happening soon. You'll see some more coming up. We're here every Tuesday practically. So the thing that we're digging into this week, lots of upheaval in craft beer over the last year or two. I mean, especially these last few weeks, it just seems like more and more announcements have been happening, maybe in your area. It's a local brewery. We've seen some national ones as well. I'm going to bring in Tyler Montgomery, who's the publisher for Brewer Mag, along with owner of a Better Brewing Company in Winchester, Kentucky. Hey, Tyler.
Hey, how's it going, John?
Good. Yeah, we're talking about kind of introducing this, and then we'll get into what you wrote about. But, here's a list of just notable closures of craft breweries since August of 2025 up until just this past weekend. Number one, someone that was a cover with us years ago in, I think, 2017, Rogue Ales and Spirits announced that they're going to be shuttering, and more details have just been coming out about that. That one struck me. I mean, we'll kind of go through a list here, but we'll get back to Rogue in a second. 21st Amendment, Iron Hill, Boundary Bay, just to list those, along with Nebraska Brewing Company. Those are just some that have announced closures. I know I've had some here in the Toledo area that have announced, that they're going to be closing either at the end of the year, shuttering a location just to go back to their original one. It seems to be happening all over the place. It's it was weird. Like, I think I texted you either Friday or Saturday about Rogue. And, that's not that we've ever, it's like we make jokes about it, just because kind of like the Madden curse, we put someone on the cover and something happens to them. This one took, 8 years. So it's not like, this is our fault or anything, but no, but we've had, most of them have been like gotten bought by, major conglomerates and not, and I don't know if that's just us picking, businesses that have succeeded to the point of, getting bought out like that or getting to that point. But seeing Rogue, what was your initial take on seeing that?
I don't know. I think it kind of hurt deeply just because of the history we've had in craft beer, and having them on the cover years ago was really cool. I mean, just being out there was a really good experience for me, and I think it was really good for the magazine in general, just our platform in general. But I mean, it sucks, but I don't really think that it's a very good indicator of what's going on in craft beer. I think it's sad seeing some of these larger brands close. But I mean, the Dead Guy Ale, as popular as it was and has been over the years, when they even pivoted to Dead Guy whiskey, they did some really neat, unique things. But craft beer is shifting. It's pivoting wildly, and I think it's those that aren't seeing the pivot are kind of losing market share. And I think it's not really their fault. Their business model was one way, and then, the business model today is just completely different. So, but yeah, I find it, especially the information that's coming out on it, feels kind of weird and sad. Just as long as I've loved craft beer and known of Dead Guy Ale, I mean, I don't know, it kind of hurts a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm actually going back at brewermag.com trying to find the exact date that we published it, because obviously I read it before that, and it was your commentary called "What Did Everyone Expect? Industry Insights from Over 10 Years." and it came out on November 8th. So about 2 weeks ago, we published this, and the amount of traction that it got, people, agreeing with it. Give me a summary, and we're going to dig more into it because of the fact that the podcast, we can kind of be a little more long-winded with it. You had a lot of numbers that you went over, and like you said, it's like what you just said. It's not all doom and gloom.
No.
Numbers may look bad, but craft beer, I think, is actually doing pretty well.
It just depends on how you want to look at it. People are really scanning the numbers a wrong way. And this isn't just my opinion. I've talked with, tons of other brewery owners, in our region, and they don't see it this way. They're more annoyed with the commentary coming out in this more doom and gloom and not looking at the numbers the right way than really what's actually going on in the industry. I shared a little bit of data on the blog that I wrote, but when you look back at prospective numbers from everything that we've seen in craft, I mean, from 2013 to 14, I was sharing this with you. This is volume year over year, in addition to also having retail sales year over year. So, look at 2013 to 14, you're a little over a decade ago. The volume year over year growth was plus 18%, while the retail numbers year over year were plus 22% for that same period. You fast forward just a decade ago, you're at plus 13% volume year over year, plus 16% in retail year over year. It stays in that vein, growing anywhere between 4 to 6% in volume and 6 to 10% in retail, throughout the 2010s. The numbers are just astonishing for any type of industry that's out there. Industries don't traditionally grow in that same percentage tick year over year as craft has over the last decade. Of course, we can look at the weird numbers for 2020, but when you look at 2020 to 2021, the rebound, volume year over year blossomed to 8%. And then the retail volume year over year in that year 2020 to 2021 was 21%. Nobody else is growing in that type of tick in any type of industry throughout the United States. We're looking at volume decreases. In 22 to 23, we saw a negative 1% volume decrease. Of course, the one that everybody talks about right now is the 23 to 24 decrease, which was roughly 4%, 3.9% to 4%. However, what you're not seeing is the retail money that's coming in year over year in those same periods has stayed at 3%. So the actual tap rooms are still pushing out 3% of total volume and making money. And I think that's the true indicator. It's not really, distribution is going to change. And we've had these conversations for years as craft grows. I think a lot of people thought that they were going to open up a craft brewery, and especially we saw this in the late 2010s, somewhere around mid to late 2018 going into 2020. I mean, nobody knew that COVID was going to happen. There's no way you could have known. It was a blindsided epidemic. But in that period, everybody was still so fascinated with the distribution game, and they thought that they could get into these national distribution chains. And what they ended up finding out was, effectively, the retail has always been where craft breweries are going to make their money. Additionally, if we're going to grow to 12,000 breweries nationwide, we're going to have more tap rooms. And it's more of a tap room focus. We had this conversation in 2018. The gastropub brew pub model was dead. It was going away. Nobody was ever doing it anymore. Everybody moved to food trucks. There was no reason to deal with food. And all of a sudden, fast forward to today, and everybody's moving away from the distribution model, going back to the taproom model. And in addition to the taproom model, going back to the brew pub model. I mean, there's no way that national distributors can keep up with 12,000 different breweries trying to release beers on a national scale. Most of these breweries don't make enough volume to release on a national scale. And there's not enough marketing money behind the breweries themselves or the distributors to even make that worthwhile to the audience that might be buying up their product. Taking it one step further, craft has always been about community. We want the community to exist. We were growing to reach more communities, not growing so that one brand could reach a community. We were growing so that more communities could experience local craft and a local craft brewery. Now, I mean, you look at a handful of cities that have, or not even a handful, a ton of cities that have more than one craft brewery. But, if you look at, U.S. cities that have somewhere around 40,000 citizens in them, or communities that amass around 40,000 people, I mean, that can support a craft brewery. And you're sitting at, maybe 20,000 of those nationwide. I mean, okay, why can't we have 20,000 plus breweries nationwide? These people don't all have to be distributing, globally. They can just be distributing, locally, and I think that's I think that's where craft has been moving over the last decade. And I think we're really just starting to see it. And it's starting to take effect on some of these larger breweries because people want to drink local, support local. That movement's come back full force like it was in the 2010s. But local's getting more hyper local. Local is no longer just supporting the brewery that might be a city over. It's supporting the brewery that's in your city. And that's going to cause people to come into that brewery, buy those cans, buy those growlers, all that merch, where they're no longer going to, the big liquor retailers or the big beer retailers and buying stuff that's nationwide. They will some. I mean, that's still always going to be there. I mean, Voodoo Ranger's still killing it, So, I mean, there's still an opportunity out there, but I do think that the industry is shifting. And I mean, some of even the biggest craft distributors I know now are pivoting into more tap rooms. Country Boy here in Kentucky has opened up 2 in the last year. West Sixth opened up, I think, 2 in the last year or in the last 2 years. So, I mean, when they're still opening up more tap rooms, you can't tell me that craft is dying. It's people are still expanding. In some places they're pulling back because they may have, like to your point, they have a good production facility, but then they go into this production facility and expand somewhere else. But then they look at that territory and they're like, it's just not really worth it to be there. We're not making a ton of money there. Additionally, you could be looking at a situation where the lease just is out. Look at what happened against the Grain this week, or late last week, early this week, or last week. They're going to move out of their original location at the Slugger Field. And I mean, that sucks, but at the same time, that's not their fault. The lease is up. They made a decision. They're businesses. We have to make good decisions. Do we think we never know what Sam Cruz is going to do in that team up against the Grain? This could be one sad moment for a lot of people and a sad shift for that business. But, what happens? What are we going to think in the next 6 to 8 months when they open up an even better tap room somewhere in Louisville? I mean, those guys pivot well. And I mean, they had a really good location. Leases change when you go to renew a lease. I mean, everything's expensive now. Property value is insane. Property taxes are insane. So, I mean, you can see where these places are shuttering. And to my last point, we were talking about those breweries that were really leaning into distribution from mid 2018 on into 2020. And they were sitting really nice, making good money on a 10, 15 barrel system, sometimes a 20 barrel system. But then they decided they wanted to jump from a 30 to a 60 barrel system. And that stuff's expensive. Those loans are expensive. Plus, you've got your building. If you didn't own your building, your lease comes up and you've got to renegotiate that. That might be higher because property taxes have gone up. It's not always the death of craft. It's not that nobody's drinking craft. It's that business changes and it has too many moving elements and things just don't go right. I mean, we don't know all the details about Rogue for, the purpose of talking about leases and property values and taxes and things. I mean, stuff happens. It's just that's not because nobody's drinking the beer. It's their volume year to year was going down, but we don't know what their taproom sales were looking like. We don't know what their taproom sales in Portland look like. So, or what they're looking like on the farm. So, I don't know. There's a million ways to look at this. And I apologize. I'm coffeeed up.
No, I was gonna say, you need a breath. Do you need a glass of water now? Are you good to go?
I'm still on
I
top.
agree.
It's game day, buddy.
It is, yeah. By the time this runs, Michigan State will have beaten Kentucky. So, no, yes. Well, you didn't want to fight me on it, so I guess you're feeling not as confident as I thought.
I mean, we did some fun things to Purdue, but it was an exhibition game, and then kind of got boat raced by Louisville. So you don't know. I mean, this Kentucky
can
team's
cross
good,
your
man,
fingers.
but it's not. It's on a new court. Izzo's.
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency. Getting back to, I think the lease thing is really important. And obviously I was barely drinking age when the bubble burst in the 90s. I might not even have been drinking age when it really started to start going back downhill a little bit. But I think it was more people talked about quality. People talked about, yeah, you weren't even close. People talked about the lack of quality. People talked about people getting into it for the wrong reasons. I think there's pieces in there, but I think the lease thing is a completely new animal this time around, where when we've talked to people over the last few years and had some commentaries shared with us about just how hard it is. And I think we're seeing this now, where I've had breweries here in the Toledo area, they're closing at the end of the year. One already closed at the end of September because their lease was up, and that their landlord was like, you know what, this property is worth way more money now. Thanks for building it up, but you're going to have to pay more. But we're in this cycle right now where, even if you do have good taproom sales, it doesn't equal what it was maybe a couple years ago. And the landlord just sees dollar signs. And I've heard, just talking to people, we have a great landlord. They're working with us. It's the ones that don't have a good landlord, or have a landlord that is more just money focused and not understanding that, yes, they built something there. Let them continue to sustain it, to continue to make more money, when they can just be like, well, now we can just sell this property and make it into something else. I think that has been one of the key aspects in the change in craft beer over this last year or two, because you are hearing of a lot of the property taxes and back taxes due, and leases are up and stuff like that. That seems to be kind of new compared to the last bubble burst that you might have heard in the 90s.
Yeah, from what I understand about the late '90s, it was a consistency issue. But what scares me the most about looking at history repeating itself is what I can't remember who really explained this to me, but it was really early on in brewers development. But effectively, what had occurred was craft beer kind of trying to. I mean, craft beer was craft beer, but it wasn't like craft beer like it is now. It was just, microbreweries. And that, I mean, while it didn't have that really cool like brand recognition behind it, the overarching industry brand, what they did struggle with was chasing pricing. So you saw macro beer start to discount its pricing, and so what the microbreweries did is they also tried to chase pricing, and it priced themselves straight out of the market and they're straight out of business. So that's one of the things that I heard about, and why that scares me. It was, when we were talking with Mad Tree this summer, and it was like we were talking about the quote lager revolution. We all love like well-crafted lagers. That's great. I mean, it's a really cool idea, but why does it exist? It was like, that's because there was tank space and time. And that should have been the first terrifying thought process. If you have the time to devote a tank to a lagering process over God knows how many, months that you're going to keep making that one lager. I mean, in the early 2015s, there was no time. It was how fast can you pump out new IPAs? West Coast hazies, New England's, whatever. Any type of IPA you could make, it was the fastest you could make it, the quickest you could package it and get it out the door. And you didn't have the tank time or the space to be lagering for that matter. So now that the lagering's in, that's my biggest fear. But there's a second fear in that, and for me, it's the lager revolution didn't really go the direction I thought it was going to go, with really premium, well-designed pilsners and just kind of the throwback European, really good lagers.
Yeah.
Some of it did, but then there's also a lot of these breweries chasing the price game and wanting to take a piece of that macro pie. And that's not what we do. We're not good at that. We're really good at supporting our communities and selling really good beer. Chasing prices is a bad strategy to even be trying to pony up with. The dollars aren't there for craft breweries as there are for macro breweries. And to try and, you know, take your, beer that is, say it's, say you design a really good Pilsner and you want to start pricing it out to be the same cost as, say, a Miller Lite. I mean, you're kind of, you're putting yourself in a tight spot. And that looks too close to the late 90s and early 2000s for me to be super comfortable with any of that.
Sure. Well, one of the things that we also were going to talk about here on this podcast is kind of a new thing that you've starting to develop right now. Tell us a little bit about Brewer Skool.
Yeah, it was one of those things I was kind of digging into, and something I've wanted to do for a long time. Brewer as a platform, I think we do a really good job of education. I think we do a really good job of finding the right people to answer the right questions for us, that are really moving the industry and helping the industry grow. Taking almost 15 years of experience with Brewer and talking with leaders throughout the industry, on top of almost another 7 of owning our own brewery and going through growth patterns. I mean, we've got too much knowledge to not share it. So I found this really cool platform. It's called Skool, Skool. And you can look up, go to our website and find it. It creates a place for people to become members, kind of like you would have maybe a Reddit or a Discord, but you can be a member, and it's free to be a member. You can get in, and I think you can really spend some time chatting with everybody else. If you are a member, I think you have the ability to message people directly. You also have the ability to message me directly, any type of question that you may need or things like that. And I mean, I spend a lot of time talking with other breweries all the time anyways. This is just another direct platform for you to reach out to us. And lastly, with that, we've designed a whole curriculum of schools. So you can go in and take your time and go through these classes. And I put in a lot of time on some of the classwork we're doing here and sharing anything that we've worked on, from hiring manuals, hiring practices, understanding your financials, how to budget. I shared an Excel sheet that is really good for budgeting for anybody that's, and I know this probably, the discussion's what's really going to be good for the larger breweries. The smaller breweries out there, they can really dig into these budgeting Excel sheets and things like that. And, we're going to keep diving into marketing tips and just stuff that we're doing that I think is really good and really unique. And just being able to share more information with the industry, also in a way that keeps advertising out. I made sure that it's all conversation and all learning without the advertising involved. So, you got to go find our suppliers over at brewermag.com. But this is a place where we can all be. It's strictly for learning. That's it. It's not that you're not going to get spammed. So.
Yeah, it's cool. In fact, funny enough, I was at the Indiana Brewers Guild and actually met one of the new Skool people that Deborah from Amaretti was on there. And she was like, "Oh, this is awesome." She's like, "I jumped on it as soon as I could and shared it with Amaretti's I guess you would say process brewer to be able to work on things." So, very much word of mouth. Great to be able to see someone in person. I know that, you had some interactions with people from all over the world. It's not just US that is joining in on this. And, personally, like not personally, but for the magazine, it's been interesting to see the influx of new people following Brewer through social media platforms. seen a lot of people from India. It seems like their industry is really starting to go, and they want that information from American brewers, because we're the class standard here in the United States, to be able to show people, the innovative part of craft beer. You want classic, great styles, you're going to go to Germany, you're going to go to Belgium, you're going to go to England. But if you're looking for newer modern styles, innovative ways, I mean, being able to read things at brewermag.com is definitely a good starting point, whether you're an American or somewhere in the world. And that's the cool thing that, Skool is going to continue to add as well for us.
Yeah. And I mean, brewermag.com has just exploded over the last couple of years. It was at one point, we would get, good views. I mean, we've always had decent views with our website, but, when over the last couple of years, when you're amassing, 3 to 5 million views a year, I mean, that's insane. I mean, the vast majority of it's actually coming from the US, and these aren't beer enthusiasts. We don't segment into beer enthusiasts or home brewers like some of the other macro publications do. But we are starting to get some viewership all over the world, like you said. And, the conversation I had over on the Skool platform was with a microbrewery in China, which is absolutely insane. I can't believe that they could even do it. And I'm super proud that, craft beer is no longer just an American entity or an American industry. We've like Americans do, we expand. So we influence. So I think, we were influenced once by some really great beer industry professionals across the pond, and we've made it our own. And I think it's a unique entity. It really is.
It absolutely is. Well, yeah, those were kind of the things that, we wanted to touch on. We'll probably, me and you'll get back together, New Year's Eve-ish, New Year's Day, not on the day, but for a podcast for that, kind of talk about, maybe have a state of the industry type of thing, even though kind of what we talked about was that, but I more wanted to be able to kind of expound on the blog that you wrote just a few weeks ago. And you can find that at brewermag.com. It is, Tyler wrote, it's called What Did Everyone Expect? Industry Insights from Over 10 Years. It's available now. You can find it on our social media platforms. Of course, we're available on all the places. We're at YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram. I think we're on TikTok. Are you dancing on TikTok still? Are you doing all that?
Yeah, we're on TikTok. I'm not dancing on TikTok, but nobody needs to see that.
But many ways, make sure. And again, now with the Skool platform, skool.com, another way to be able to reach us. Discord, I think we're on. I feel like we try to be everywhere and at least dip our toes in the water everywhere, just to stay connected, because that's the other thing that's, I think, the hardest part is finding information nowadays. It used to be, okay, just go to Facebook for it. Okay, well, now you can go so many different ways, and we want to make sure that we're there. And of course, the easiest place to go is brewermag.com. So Tyler, appreciate you hanging out with us, and we'll talk more later. Thanks for everyone tuning in today, and don't forget, we're available at brewermag.com, YouTube, and Spotify. Thanks for watching the Brewer Magazine podcast. Cheers.
Go Cats.
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.